All right, everyone. In the wake of the third debate with Kamala Harris underperforming so badly, it's now time to basically say goodbye to her presidential campaign. That is, Kamala Harris has lost viability. In fact, if you look at the shift, and this is a single group of polling that was aggregated by Nate Silver, so keep that in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. According to that, Buttigieg is arguably now about the same as Kamala Harris with regards to the number of people who could potentially vote for him. And considering the fact that he had what was considered a good debate performance, he clocked in just behind Elizabeth Warren, actually, who came out on top. And that's because of name recognition. Like I said, immediately my snap reaction was Buttigieg is the best person here. He wins again, and yet Elizabeth Warren's going to steal all the thunder. That's what happened. Now with Buttigieg inching upwards, and Kamala Harris faltering a bit. With them both even and one of them on the upswing, Kamala Harris arguably falls to fifth. At this point, this late in the game, we're approaching October. If you're not in the top four, you're no longer really viable. She's been knocked out, essentially. Which, by the way, is good. And the other part is apparently it didn't help with fundraising. Like, usually, if you have a really good debate performance, all of a sudden millionaires want to be buddy-buddy with you. That didn't happen for Kamala. That's because her debate performance fucking sucked. Third place was, I think, Beto O'Rourke came in at third, which is funny, but the thing is he's coming from so far down the field that it doesn't even matter. Biden, meanwhile, who had a mediocre performance, because he's so far out ahead, at most he's now drawn even or so with Warren. Like, she's pulled ahead a bit. He loses a little bit of steam, but he's still technically the front runner. But as far as those people down ballot, you have to understand, like, Bernie Sanders was basically the mean median in mode. He basically barely appeared on stage. He was not remarkable at the debate. Kamala Harris really was therefore the biggest loser. I think Julian Castro, apparently, he was ranked the lowest of all. I didn't think he did that bad. He smacked out at other people. It was funny, though, what he did was he took Klobuchar's attack on Biden's memory that was very early on, and he kept using that over and over again. He wanted to distinguish himself, but instead just looked like a bully, and I guess that's why he got penalized for it. By the way, helping Biden in the process, because of course if the person pointing out the obvious looks like a terrible, despicable bully, it really helps you. I may be not mentioning a couple other candidates. I don't know, at some point they start to run together because these people are all morons. Other than Buttigieg, of course, again, even if he rises to third, which could happen, I mean, Sanders could stroke out tomorrow. Biden could be forced to drop out. Even then, he'd barely be viable at that point. Kamala Harris is now outside of the winner's circle, which is good. Again, it's good for the population because the threat of the possibility of someone as whacked out and corrupt as Kamala Harris getting anywhere near the White House is a terrible thing. We don't need crooked people to be in the White House, which is why most of the Democrats are completely disqualified. I think there are a couple of them who have stood out. Mike Gravel, who was briefly in the running until he was disqualified from the first set of debates, he would have been good. He's almost 90 years old, and he threatened to crucify all the other Democrats up on stage. That would have been funny. So he was worth potentially supporting. Buttigieg is at least viable. You don't have to like his policies. You can think he's a pandering asshole, but at the very least he's electable. The Democrats, if the Democrats were to front Buttigieg, they'd have a chance of winning. Whereas with Sanders, 0% chance, I think. Warren, probably close to zero. Biden, I think Biden probably won't even make it to the general. If they're crazy enough to nominate him, he might die before the general election really heats up, leaving them with whoever his running mate was running instead, which would be a catastrophic failure. Trump could sweep every state. People will punish the Democrats for being completely fucking nuts. Especially if they choose their running mate wrong. Imagine Biden gets there and he does a John McCain-style job of choosing a running mate. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, the VP slot is the only thing at this point she can hope for. What she should do, like for her future and stuff, if she's wise, do what some of these others, like do what Beto's doing. Beto's no longer running for the presidency in 2020. He knows the gig is up. His debate performance, while okay, he got in the quip of the night, fundamentally has transformed into pandering to people on the fringe. He's trying to get money together. He's trying to get fundraising going from the far left so that he can run for governor, for senator, something like that. Harris should emulate this, and you should do the same thing. Set yourself up to be potentially a kingmaker in the delegate process, too. I mean, she doesn't need to drop out. That's not what I'm saying. but set yourself up into a position where you still have some leverage. Maybe you can get a cabinet position or something. Or say, you know, and or something is the real big term there, because I don't think the Democrats are going to win anyway. The likelihood of a Democratic president taking hold in 2020 is very, very slim at this point. Trump basically is standing back and letting them implode. For all of this talk that you've got about Trump doing terrible, wrong things, it doesn't affect his approval. Most people are now tuning out the corporate media because the corporate media for years now has literally said nothing positive about Trump. And yet his approval is about even with where Obama's was at this point in his presidency. It's only slightly lower. Imagine if Obama had been forced to deal with 24/7 negative campaigns from the entire corporate media complex. Do you think his approval would have been a bit lower? And by the way, it's not like he's, Obama being reelected, he was running against Mitt Romney, someone who at the very least seemed viable up until the end. He was just kind of a generic, boring Republican, but he didn't have any major disqualifying traits. I can think of so many major disqualifying traits for even frontrunners within the Dem field. Biden, his health issues, his age, the fact that if you put him up on a debate stage with Trump, he's going to get wheeled around and it's going to be insane. It'll be like blood sports, only it'll play out on CNN. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. I'm sorry, but most centrists will not tolerate that. They'll punish the Democratic Party. Elizabeth Warren, there's something about her, I'm telling you, that's going to rub people the wrong way. And it might have something to do with lying about her ethnicity for 50 years. That might not help her, in fact. Buttigieg is the only one there that stands out among those that are technically still viable. And now Kamala Harris has dropped out of that level because in part of Tulsi Gabbard. They were terrified if Gabbard were on the stage the other night when they had that debate, Elizabeth Warren right now would be hemorrhaging support, which is exactly why they cherry-picked their polls. Let's not mince words. It's exactly why that was done. Yes, it was corrupt. That's exactly what they did. It was on purpose. It's not an accident. It's not just some funny math. It's not some pre-agreed upon criteria for the polling numbers. It was specifically to keep Gabbard off that stage. Gabbard should have gone after Elizabeth Warren instead, since Kamala Harris was never even capable of winning in the first place. That would have been funny. She could have attacked her and said, well, Elizabeth Warren might be a little bit bigoted too, considering her Cherokee non-inheritance there. Poor Kamala. Kamala Harris was riding so high too, she arguably was in a second place tie with Sanders and Warren for about a week. And at the time I said, well, I mean, she's going to crash and burn. This is her peak. She's going to go back down. A lot of people thought she had become the heir apparent to the DNC. I said, no, it's Elizabeth Warren. Warren is waiting in the wings already. There's no room for a third wheel. Warren's just fine. Warren is the runner-up. Biden's the one they want. They realize Biden has health issues and they realize Biden may not make it. So they just have Elizabeth Warren there. And you watch, if Biden drops out or drops off the face of the earth, he'll endorse Elizabeth Warren and vice versa. If it looks like he's going to be nominated and you're not going to have like a major crisis with a huge brokered convention or something, then she'll endorse Joe Biden. That is what will happen. They'll probably get Kamala Harris aboard too. I think the Clintonian people like Kamala. They see her as a kindred spirit. She's a crooked, corrupt neoliberal, pretends to be far left, panders constantly, extremely vile individual. Yeah, of course the Clintons will like Kamala Harris. Of course they'd love her to be president. It'd also be someone they could easily control because she gets a big dick about things. Probably you stroke her ego a little bit, you can get her to do whatever you want. Elizabeth Warren might be a little more difficult, but she's the one the DNC has faith in to carry the torch of the Democrats forward if Biden falters. And he is arguably faltering. I mean, next week the polls could show Elizabeth Warren on top. Biden's invincibility fundamentally is completely ripped apart. All bets are off if there's ever a polling period in which Warren is high enough in the aggregate to be a significant challenge. Because the illusion of invincibility that Biden has, the illusion of inevitability, goes away at that point. You could see a major switch. You could see Elizabeth Warren rise up very, very quickly and become the frontrunner if that happens. By the way, an Elizabeth Warren campaign means Trump 2020 for all intents and purposes. He would probably be reelected. I think she would have lower chance than Biden because of her checkered history. Because of the fact that she is a neoliberal corporate hawk pretending to be a progressive, that's not going to work in today's day. It might have worked before the internet. It might have worked before instant fact-checking. Now, not so much. That's about all. Peace out.